Do you like them?
Well, I'm thinking, they have their place. I like the dings.
People are joining in.
One thing I haven't actually thought about. Will will I be in full screen on my own screen? Or can I make that happen? I was just thinking
What do you mean
because,
on your own screen?
well, usually the screen that I'm viewing contains like you guys, I guess. But if I'm basically streaming that screen to YouTube, will I also be able to go full screen with that? So I'm basically looking at myself only because
Oh,
that's what the audience would then see, I guess.
yes, you can actually choose what you want to see. There should be an option to change your view.
Ah,
Let me see.
okay.
But when you're sharing your screen, you will see your screen.
Right, yeah, that makes sense because that's what I want them to see as well, of course. That makes perfect sense. But
Yeah, but
while
let
I'm
me
while
see.
I'm talking, I should be full screen. And I was just thinking, hey, I didn't we because we didn't really we didn't really test this beforehand. Kind of all
Yeah,
very exciting to figure that out on the fly. Kind of what we do in television all the
there
time.
should be an option around there somewhere. I can't see it right now.
Let's see.
It's usually in a corner. It
On the
says
top
grid view.
right, yeah, on the top right it says speaker view.
Oh, there we
On
go.
the
On the top right.
Speaker view. Let me see if I can find view.
Speaker
Speaker
view.
view. All right.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Very nice of you.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Okay, let me know if you're ready and I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, it looks like I am ready. Let me just go and see what happens. Can I just yeah, see, I can see you now, Urelis, but I can't see me.
I think whenever someone is speaking, it'll show whoever is speaking. But let me see. Okay, when I click on speaker view, I can see you.
Right. And if yeah, so I'm by default just seeing you in full screen.
Oh,
Let me see. Pin video, hide selfie, no spotlight, pin video, rename, stop video. No, 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 no.
oh, you
Me?
can pin yourself.
I can pin myself.
Yeah,
Ah, there we go. That's what we want. This
there
is
you go.
perfect. All right. I'm
There we
full
go.
screen. This is great. Thank you so much for
Perfect.
helping me out, for helping me through this difficult patch with Zoom. That's nice.
We're all learning as we go. All right,
Awesome.
perfect. Okay, so if we're all set, is it okay if I go ahead and get started?
Please do.
Hit that record? Okay, I'm about to hit the record button.
All
So,
right. This meeting is being recorded. Am I okay with this? Leave meeting. No, no, that's cool.
there we go. Okay, hi everybody, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you here for our first NCODA speaker event. My name is Jarelis. I am the president of our NCODA chapter at NSU, and I'm about to introduce you to our amazing speaker. Jay Lewis is a broadcast professional by trade and has worked in live television for 20 years in the UK and Germany in companies such as BBC, MTV, CNN, Cartoon Network, and more. Even though he's not a big fan of football, he brought the English Premier League football to a worldwide audience almost every weekend for 10 years. On the side, he has dedicated to creating content for his 2 websites and YouTube channel, something that he has been doing full time since he had cancer. He's also an in-store shopper with Instacart, but since the COVID-19 pandemic, he had to stop doing this on his oncologist's recommendation. Jay is also a super survivor. In 2016, he nearly died of a complicated case of colon cancer that required years of treatment. He recovered after receiving immunotherapy, and his recovery led his doctors to call him as such, a super survivor. I was fascinated by his story after hearing him speak at an oncology symposium in 2018 when I met him. And since then, we have been talking about collaborating in an event. And today, this is finally happening, and we're very excited to have him here with us. So now please join me and the NCODA student chapter at NSU as we welcome Jay Lewis. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. That was really nice. I just went back to this gallery view and I can't figure out what button did I press to go and bring me back
Share
full
your
screen. I'm so sorry. I just was it the view button? Guest speaker view. There we go. Oh my goodness. I had a
Speaker
lot
view,
to
there you
learn.
go.
One of those things. Well, thank you so much for having me, Aurelis. I really appreciate the opportunity. And especially because it's October. October is a kind of special month, both for me and my case, as well as many cancer survivors, because it is one of those months where they celebrate. I believe on the 3rd of October is World Ostomy Month. So anyone who's associated with colon cancer will probably know what an ostomy is, and I've had 2 of them. That's quite crazy. I had a colostomy and an ileostomy. Both were reversed, which was great. And that happened in the month of October, literally 3 years ago. Slightly later in the month, but October is kind of a special deal for me because of that. The other reason why October is special for me is because it marks my 3-year anniversary as a cancer survivor. And that's quite remarkable to think about that. So the cancer survivors are grouped in these kind of, if you've had treatment and your cancer's gone away, as in remission, as they say, and you survive for a year, that's the kind of 1-year group. And the longer you survive, the better it is for you, as well as, your life and for obviously the treatment that's been successful. If ever you have a relapse of cancer, that thing is being reset. So if I were to survive for 6 months and then I get cancer again, that's when, and it gets cured again, that's when the survivalship countdown starts as such. So that's why October is important for me, because it marks my 3-year anniversary of having survived cancer. And
That's great.
It's unbelievable. I can't quite believe it myself. It's very cool. And so I've had a really complicated case, like Jarellis was saying. So I had regular colon cancer. It was actually not regular colon cancer, but there were 2 complications with colon cancer. One was a thing called KRAS mutation. That's a genetic thing in which the cancer appears to be more aggressive than regular cancer. It's a kind of a cell division thing, I believe. I'm not a doctor, sadly, but it's a thing in which the cells divide without checking, hey, should I do this first? So cancer does that anyway, but there's kind of accelerated cell growth that can be observed with KRAS. And it means that conventional treatment methods for cancer are usually not working for people with a KRAS mutation. And so that it makes the cancer appear to be growing a lot faster. So that's kind of, the time frame of cancer is just kind of accelerated, appears more aggressive. Then the other issue that I had with my cancer was something called Lynch Syndrome. It goes by several other names as well, but Lynch Syndrome is one of those things in which, so when I was diagnosed, I was 43, and that's fairly young for a cancer patient. So they were wondering why I got cancer in the first place. And usually in older people, the cancer, from what I understand, happens because cell division and checking mechanisms are just getting tired, mistakes slip in, and that's why people over 60, 70, 80, they get cancer due to age. But there's nothing genetically wrong with them. But when younger people get cancer, doctors are usually a little bit more alert and say, ooh, why did this happen? Is it some kind of environmental thing, or is it in fact a genetic thing? And that's what happened in my case. So I have this thing from my father's side of the family that just literally runs in the family, and that's called Lynch syndrome. And that is an impairment, if I understand it correctly, of the DNA checking mechanism. So a cell replicates, the DNA replicates, and before a cell is built around it, the body usually checks, hey, is this DNA valid? Is this okay? And this mechanism is impaired in my genes, essentially. So it says, hey, we didn't quite check if this strand of DNA is okay. Let's just build a cell around it anyway. And that, of course, might end up as a monster. And it's only one cell that it takes. And that's then, spirals the whole thing out of proportion. And so those 2 things, there were factors in my case. That's why I got cancer. I had this KRAS mutation, aggressive growth, and I also had Lynch syndrome, which is why I got cancer in the first place. Which also means I'm going to have literally just monitoring for the rest of my life, so making sure it doesn't come back. And I'm hoping, so I'm never going to really be out of the woods, but it could literally be a decade or 2 until it comes back. So we don't know, but I need regular checkups, and it's very important to remember that. So perhaps I will tell you how it all started and what exactly I went through bit by bit. So there's a lot to it. There's the ileostomy and the colostomy. There's also 9 months of living without solid food due to 2 fistulas that I had. So I'll tell you all about that. That was kind of crazy. There was also the fact that I began treatment in one hospital, and they then decided, as the medication wasn't working and I was getting iller, even though I was on chemotherapy at the time, they decided they couldn't help me and basically turned me down. That was an absolutely weird experience that I had. And I had to find another team of doctors, which was amazing because they came through. So that was very, very exciting to having found this team of doctors and how I found them and how this whole emotional thing happened. So yes, I'll tell you the whole story, and I hope I can remember it because funny enough, I haven't really talked much about it. I was glad that it was over, and I haven't really elaborated much on my case in the last year or two. So I think 2018, when I met Eurellis, that was the last time I actually really talked about it. So it'll be interesting, and I'll keep an eye on the time as well. I have a tendency to talk like for 7 hours without putting my audience to sleep. So if that happens, do let me know. Also, if you do have questions, just drop them in either in the chat or just shout out, and I'll see if I can answer it. So my case began in the summer of 2015 with bizarre symptoms that you couldn't really put your finger on, wow, this is clearly cancer. It wasn't like that. I had some mild diarrhea that wouldn't go away, kind of didn't really notice it at first. And it's one of those things, diarrhea, you just, it either comes or goes, or maybe it's something you ate, maybe it's something, it'll just get better, whatever. I never really looked at it closely. It's just one of those things that happened, and I didn't take it seriously. What I did take seriously was this one time when my wife and I went out for a cycle in the beautiful Miami area on the mainland through a park. It was really sunny, it was really hot, and I was extremely thirsty. So I thought, hey, I'm thirsty enough, I'm going to drink from this public water fountain that my wife would just literally just flat out refuse to touch because it was just dirty and grubby and the water was a little bit milky. And I thought, hey, what am I going to do? I'm thirsty. So I drank from it. And as it happens with bacteria in your GI tract, you give it 10 minutes or so and you really need to go to the bathroom. And, that is what happened. And I had this huge bout of my body literally wanted to eject whatever was in me, and it couldn't do that. So it was rather painful. You got the whole gut working at pushing out whatever's inside you, and some kind of blockage prevented that from happening. And that was painful, uncomfortable, was also worrying because I didn't know what that was. I mean, you know how strong muscles are in the human body. Think about people grinding their teeth. The same thing's kind of happening in your gut. And it's kind of, it was so strong and super painful. I really didn't know if I had ripped something in my gut. Eventually it all came out, but it was just, it was just an odd experience. I've never had that before. So it went away again, and it came to the 40th anniversary of Jaws, Steven Spielberg's Jaws, and they had a special screening here in Miami Beach in the local cinema. And my wife and I decided to go. We had tickets. I thought, yeah, Jaws on the big screen is great. Trouble was, I had a huge urinary tract infection at that time, and it was extremely painful to walk. And again, I didn't know where that came from. And I made it to the cinema, bought myself some Azo to numb the pain, swore myself, tomorrow you go to the doctor and have him look into that and just tell him what this was all about. So no blood in the stool, UTI happening for whatever reason, and that was just odd and painful, and I felt a little shivery and ill, as probably as a sign of this infection that, as it later turned out, was in fact not just a UTI. It was something much, much worse than that, much more grave than that. So I went to my local doctor at the time, Dr. Lester de Leon, wonderful doctor here at the Miami Beach Community Center. And he said, you know what, those symptoms, they are weird. I got to tell you this is not something that I can put my finger on. This is not something that I'm saying, well, this has got to be it. This is just, we're going to have to run some tests. So we know you're infected. We know that UTI can give you something against the pain, but where does it all come from? So he said, let me do an ultrasound of your abdominal area and just see what's there. ultrasound is kind of a nice way to at least have a look. Hey, are the organs in the right place? It's good to check that. And I don't speak Spanish, but he speaks Spanish. His assistant spoke Spanish, who was gelling up my body, like as if I was pregnant, that sort of thing. And he was, I could just read in their expressions. They were literally like, "Oh shit, what is this?" So not that I could understand their words, their body language really spoke volumes. And so Dr. De Leon said, "Jay, do you have cancer in your family by any chance?" And I was just thinking, man, it's been a while since I thought about this, because yes, I have cancer in my family, and it's literally running on both sides, on my mother's side and my father's side. So my grandmother had breast cancer. Her two sisters had breast and bone cancer. On my father's side of the family, we had, I believe, one colostomy and issues of pancreatic as well as colon cancer. But it was one of those topics that, at least on my father's side of the family, we never really talked about. So I just recounted that to him, and he goes, "You know what, this could be something like that, and you should have that checked out. And not tomorrow, not next week or so. It has to literally be tomorrow." But so the problem that he could see was there was a mass in my abdomen somewhere, and he could see that I was severely infected as well. And the issue now was that really in such cases where you have a blockage somewhere in your colon, you want to do a colonoscopy to see firsthand with the camera what's going on. Turns out that due to the infection that had been going for a couple of months by that point, it was too risky to do a colonoscopy because my bowel walls would be so thin and inflamed that there would be a risk of them getting pierced, and they didn't want to risk that. So we decided to put me on home infusion antibiotics, like really strong stuff. You may have heard of Zosyn before, Zosyn, Merum. I think I was on both of these, and they were strong enough that they had to be infused into my body every 8 hours. So that is something that either happens in a doctor's office or you can choose to do it at home. So that was my first brush with the US healthcare system. It's kind of crazy. This was in 2015, summer of 2015. And I was administered to Baptist Hospital, the large campus in Kendall, and they were marvelous. It's a great, great hospital. And they said, yeah, what we need to do is give you these antibiotic infusions and get you in touch with Dr. Gaviria, who is a wonderful infectious disease doctor. So he's the guy who's in charge of treating me with that, with these antibiotics. I had in parallel made contact, on his recommendation actually, made contact with a colon surgeon, which I thought was super weird because we didn't even know what this thing was yet. It's an infection and some kind of thing we don't know what it is. But everyone said, you should go and speak to a colon surgeon just in case we do need surgery. At least he's briefed, at least he's there. And I had to pay all that cash out of my own pocket, which was kind of crazy because it was literally $350 just to see this man. And now I know it's a good deal, but back then I wasn't so sure. I was thinking, man, this is just home infusion antibiotics, vast amounts of cash just coming out of my own pocket. We were not insured. It was the other problem. So, but hey, we did it. Home infusion antibiotics continued for about 3 months until towards kind of the end of the year. And it came to round about Christmas time until things kind of calmed down. And at that point, I was deemed fairly infection-free and a colonoscopy could be scheduled, which we did for the 30th of January. I'm quite impressed that I remember these dates. 30th of January, 2016. First colonoscopy ever with a man called Dr. Para. Very nice man. And he's a gastroenterologist, I believe. And I had met him before. He had put me in touch with Dr. Zomstein, who would later become my colon surgeon. So Dr. Para preps me for the operation and says, okay, great, let's do the colonoscopy. And hopefully we're going to find out what this is. Maybe things are really harmless. We don't know. First time I was put on propofol. Was it propofol? It's the kind of the medication that puts you under. Super stuff. Absolutely nice things. I literally count back from 10, count back. And I got to about 8. woke up what it felt to me like seconds later, and it appears that it was in fact an hour or two later. Came to, it was all good. He came in to see me and my wife. My wife was there, Julia was with me, and he said, you know what, I'm so sorry to tell you this. I couldn't complete the colonoscopy. I could go into about 10 centimeters, but then there was a massive blockage and my colonoscope wouldn't go past it. And he showed me a picture of it. Sadly, I don't have it on me, otherwise I could share it with you. But yes, that was literally the tumor that was blocking his colonoscope, and literally any food in my GI tract had to squeeze past this. That was manifesting itself in diarrhea and occasional bloating and pain in my abdomen. And he said, I can't be sure, but it looks like it's cancer. I've seen this one too many times. It might not be, but it looks like it could be cancer. And in complete shock, we said, well, what are we going to do? What's the next step? And he said, well, you've already made contact with Dr. Zomstein, the colon surgeon. He works here with us in Baptist Hospital. And I'm going to call him right away. You're going to have to go to ER right away, to the emergency room, literally now, where they're going to just slot you into the hospital system. And you're going to have to speak to him. You'll have to have surgery. This thing has to come out. All I was thinking of at that point was, how am I going to afford that? This is bizarre. I couldn't, in 2016, I think in 2015, we couldn't get health insurance because the year wasn't over. That's how crazy the US healthcare system is. If you're looking to apply for health insurance in the middle of the year, you can't do it. You have to wait until the new year starts. Bizarrely. We had insurance, literally had done all that, so that for 2016, no matter what would have happened, we had insurance. So that was, at least that was covered, and that hospital was also covered. That was a small load off my mind. And so we go into ER, we get prepped, we meet Dr. Zomstein, who says, yeah, man, that looks terrible. But, don't you worry about it. He's such a wonderful man. Dr. Markus Zomstein, unbelievable. He said, well, we're gonna do surgery. We're gonna take this thing out, and you'll be back to normal. Don't you worry. I said, wow, how long is this going to take? Thinking of the UK NHS kind of system, that would take like 3 to 6 months until you get scheduled for surgery. Dr. Zomstein goes, well, we'll do it tomorrow morning. And I was thinking, tomorrow? That's like 12 hours away. That's unbelievable. So that was possible. It's unbelievably cool. And so yes, he performed surgery the next morning. Dr. Zomstein surgery, 31st of January, the colonoscopy, 1st of February 2016. Quite amazingly, surgery. And we didn't know what to expect from that. He said, yeah, this could just be a small thing that we take out. That's it. It might not be. We'll just see what happens. So he goes and performs surgery. Once again, I get put under, wake up literally hours later. It was a big surgery. It was a massive surgery, like literally 8 to 10 hours later, I wake up. I don't remember. My wife will remember better. And Dr. Zomstein tells me it's far worse than we thought. So the blockage we found in your colon, I've taken that out. So I've disconnected your rectum. I've disconnected your large intestine, took out the sigmoid colon, the appendix, the cecum, all that's removed. And in order for this to heal, I've given you a I've given you a colostomy. So that's the exit from the large intestine, or what's left of it, going out into my belly. And that was something that I was really afraid of. I wasn't sure how to handle that. How am I going to handle a colostomy? This is weird. But it worked, and it worked much better than I thought. There was all kinds of things I had feared about that, but it wasn't actually that big a deal if you know how to handle it, if you know the supplies. And I got all that at the hospital. I got good training, and I literally got used to it. It was as easy as that. That was nice. The more difficult aspect was how far the cancer had actually advanced. So at that point was the first time that they had actually diagnosed what stage, if A, was it cancer, B, what stage of cancer was it, C, what cancer was it. So it was diagnosed that it wasn't quite stage 4. I was really lucky about that. There was kind of a between stage 3 and 4. The cancer hadn't metastasized through the bloodstream. Usually that's what happens when people have advanced stages of cancer, any kind of cancer. As soon as it goes into the bloodstream, cancer cells can travel all over and manifest themselves elsewhere. So you could have, say, colon cancer, and that gets so advanced that eventually cancer cells travel in your bloodstream and they manifest in the breast. And then you have cancer in the breast. But that's not classed as breast cancer. That's still colon cancer, just in a different part of your body. And that's how traditional metastases work, if I understand it correctly. In my case, the cancer had spread, but it hadn't gone in the bloodstream. It had spread from my sigmoid colon, where it was. It had, due to proximity, it had spread into my bladder. And that was kind of weird. That explained the UTI. That's why I had an infection in the bladder, and why that kept coming back. That's because the cancer kind of grew from the sigmoid colon, bladder is kind of next to it, and just because these guys were both inflamed, they fused and formed a fistula, so that essentially my sigmoid colon and the bladder were kind of attached to one another, forming, in fact, a little connection, so that stuff from my GI tract would end up in my bladder, and that is how I got the UTI. So that was a bit of a shock. This is why the surgery took so long, is because he could just about separate these things and patch me back up with the colostomy. And the plan then was to give me the first line treatment of any colon cancer, which is FOLFOX chemotherapy. And that's no matter what type of colon cancer you really have. I mean, there's been a lot of research been done, and they found out now that there's not one colon cancer as such. There's multiple strands of what we once used to call colon cancer. And there used to be one medication that used to kind of work against most of them. But now we know that there's actually several very different subgroups, and not one medication is good for everything. It's, it might work, it might not. And in my case, it didn't work, as it turns out. Spoiler alert. So I was supposed to heal up for a month or so, and then be put on chemotherapy treatment. I had made connection with an oncologist at Baptist Hospital, who would take care of my future treatment as soon as I would have, been fit enough to receive it. So recover from the surgery, maybe a month, 6 weeks, and then the plan was to put me on chemo in about April. So we went home from the hospital, where I was about 3 or 4 days. We're talking still beginning of February, and we got home, and something rather weird has happened. I was just about getting ready to go outside with my new colostomy bag and check out how that works in the public, because that's just not something you're not really used to doing. That it's just all bizarre and weird, bag hanging from your belly, and it's all those things, and oh my god, I have cancer, and have they found a cure, and oh my god, this emotional turmoil was going on inside me. And it then turned out that about 5 days later, 5 days after I was discharged from hospital, I started peeing huge blood clots, like massive clots of blood coming out of my, when I urinate. And it's bizarre because I've never had that before. And since I didn't recall any surgery on my bladder, we were all a bit concerned. But if they're tiny, you think, well, whatever, really. They got so big that I couldn't relieve myself. So they were so big that they were literally clogging up the flow of urine, and I couldn't pass urine anymore. That was super bizarre. It literally was, it was painful. It was every time you go to the bathroom, which is like every hour or whenever, there was this huge pain because I couldn't pee. And it took me a huge strain to relieve myself of these blood clots. Some were as big as my thumb and bigger. And that was unbelievable. So we thought, what are we going to do? There's going to be the point at which I can't pee anymore. And then urine is going to go to my kidneys. Kidney failure. That's just, oh my God, what are we going to do? And since we had already made good connections in Baptist Hospital, we decided together, Julia and I, my wife and I together, let's go back to ER. There's really nothing you can do here, but you can't just wait it out or be afraid every time you go to the bathroom. go back to ER. So we got checked in again. Horrendous pain, not being able to pee, until we finally were seen to. And that's another terrible story, that no urologist was on call at Baptist Hospital for about, I don't know, 12 hours or so. They gave me a catheter, didn't quite know what was wrong. They could just about relieve me from the pressing issue of not being able to pass urine. But of course, the blood clots were also clogging up the catheter. So that was like, I was never in that much pain. I had bladder spasms. I had the whole 9 yards. And that, from what I remember, it took about like 3 days or so, for 2 days maybe, for a real urologist to show up, not an emergency guy, but a real urologist, Dr. Danny Martinez. You may have seen him on YouTube. He is in the field of andrology. Very nice man, very nice man. He saw to me and he said, yeah, what we need to do is look inside your bladder and see what's going on, because we can't explain this. You've just been to this very hospital. We didn't see anything wrong with your bladder. We did Cystoscopy, I believe. That's kind of an x-ray of the bladder. We didn't see anything wrong with it. Whatever is happening here is, we don't know what it is. So I go back under another surgery. This is like the third time I'm experiencing propofol, which is great stuff. And wake up, and he says, Jay, we had to resect a massive tumor from the inside of your bladder wall. And I can only apologize, because I have no idea how we missed this when you were here 5 days ago. And we did all kinds of tests and treatments. We didn't see that there was a tumor that was this large inside your bladder. The tumor in the bladder was bleeding, blood coming out, coagulating in the urine, hence causing blood clots. And it was unbelievable. I didn't really know how I should feel about this, then having missed something so grave, or having cancer, having colon cancer in my bladder, which is just what was going on? Who's in charge here? So yes, that was terrible. So that meant for my chemotherapy to be postponed, because we didn't know where that second tumor came from. So that now put me at kind of a T3.5, kind of somewhere between stage 3 and stage 4 in the whole cancer regimen. And yes, that was terrible. I didn't have chemotherapy yet, so we didn't bring the cancer under control just yet. We resected whatever was there, but we haven't actually cured it. So both the colon resection and the partial bladder resection now mean I have less colon, I have less bladder than I used to have. But we didn't know how to make sure the cancer doesn't come back, and would there be residual stuff that would keep regrowing before we could administer the chemotherapy, and would the chemotherapy work? So that's kind of, that was act 1 over and done with. The act 2 then was, I wait for the arrival of chemotherapy, which comes. In the meantime, I'm wearing a catheter, I'm wearing a colostomy bag, so 2 pipes, 2 plastic bags hanging out of my body, severely limited, what's it called? The quality of life. But it works, kind of works, and we're hanging in there hoping that chemotherapy will only take a few sessions and then this thing is under control. So it turns out we start FOLFOX, which is this infusion, like a 3-hour infusion at the hospital, at Baptist Hospital in the old building. I don't know if you know Baptist Hospital, but they now have a really brand spanking shiny new cancer center called the Miami Cancer Center, in fact. And it is really glitz and glamour. It's awesome on the inside. Sadly, I didn't get to experience back then. They didn't have that. They had something called the Medical Arts Building, which was kind of the size of my 600 square foot 1-bedroom apartment, it felt like, with about 60 people getting chemo infusions at the same time. Probably the dimensions are, pinch of salt and all that, but it was extremely cramped, and there was a lot of people there receiving chemo treatment. And after a few sessions, I think about 4 sessions, it was every other week that I got. So 1 week treatment, 1 week off treatment, 1 week treatment. After about 4 treatments, 3 or 4 treatments, I experienced these blood clots in my bladder again. And they become bad enough that there's more blood coming out than I had ever seen before. I also had my so yes, that happened. I got worried about it. So I called Dr. Martinez up, my urologist at the time, and said, hey, something isn't right here. What can we do? And he goes, the only thing we can do is put you in for another cystoscopy. So I'll book an appointment. I'll make it for tomorrow. So these guys are really on the ball. It's really amazing how quickly things happen in emergencies. And they had me on their radar as somebody, this guy could literally fall over any moment. So we did that. We did another cystoscopy, which is, if you don't know that, this is a thing that goes into your bladder through the urethra, a camera and an instrument. It can either be a camera, it can also be just an optical track, so people can look inside your bladder either with a camera or literally just like the good old-fashioned way with a lens, and have another slot through the thing. So it's kind of wide. It's really uncomfortable when it goes in. So luckily I was under, I didn't feel that. So but they slide that into your urethra until they're inside the bladder. They inflate the bladder with saline solution so that they can actually look inside it. Otherwise it would be deflated and you couldn't see what's going on. So they put the cystoscope into your urethra. They blow up your bladder. They look inside it. They slide an instrument in it with which they can do things like, cut things off or poke things with, take biopsies and whatever it is that urologists do in a cystoscopy. So that luckily I was under at that point. So Dr. Martinez, I wake up again. Dr. Martinez comes and tells me, do you know what? The tumor has regrown in your bladder. The colon cancer that was still in your bladder that he had resected literally 4 to 6 weeks earlier had fully regrown. This thing is aggressive. This thing is fast. This thing isn't stopping. And the chemotherapy didn't actually do anything to slow the growth down. Quite the opposite. It was just like the cancer was laughing about it. So he resects the tumor again and says, I've taken more of the bladder wall off than I probably should have. And you're going to have to wear a catheter for the next foreseeable future, really, until this heals, because we don't want your bladder to inflate and all that. We need for that to be like in a collapsed state so it can heal. But he says the problem is that I don't know how long we can do this for. If the cancer keeps regrowing and the medication isn't actually working, the only thing I can really recommend to get rid of this, it's like the 1980s approach to cancer treatment, is cut the whole thing out. So the only idea that he had with the situation that we were in was to say, look, the medication isn't working. Me resecting the tumor continuously isn't working. We're going to have to take your bladder out. That's the only thing we can do in order for this thing to stop. And with margins, because we don't want this to come back anywhere else. So I was thinking at that point, I've already got a colostomy. I'm also going to have a urostomy. I'm going to have both now. My life is going from bad to worse in a matter of literally days and weeks. And to top it all off, my oncologist at Baptist Hospital, whose name I can't remember, which is exciting. I remember everyone else's name. That guy's name I don't remember. He was the most depressed man ever. I don't know how many patients he's seen die, but this guy was the most depressed doctor I have ever met. Even when he smiled, he looked depressed, crazy. So he says, hey, look, there's nothing we can do for you anymore. This FOLFOX treatment is the only thing I can really give you. It isn't working. We know that. You need something called a radical cystectomy, which is the whole removal of the bladder. And we don't have the staff here at Baptist Hospital to do that at the time. That was. So now they do, but back in the days, 2016, they didn't have that. So he says, there's really nothing I can do. So it was me, my wife, the oncologist, we're all sitting there in this tiny silent room together with the doctor, and there was this awkward silence. And I was thinking, you're turning me away? You can't even, there's nothing you can do. There's not like medication B, medication C. There's no, oh, I know a guy, I can call him and see if he can, none of that. Unbelievable. So you don't really know how to take that. So we were just sitting there, what felt like 5 minutes, and no one was talking. And we're like, what are we going to do now? I'm still dying. If we do nothing, I'm going to die sooner. And I was only 44 43 at the time, 44 at the time. And I was thinking, how's this story gonna progress? I suppose that's end of Act 1. Now, beginning of Act 2. How's this gonna? What are we gonna do now? And that was a seriously scary moment. And there was really nothing we could do. It looks like the surgeons at Baptist Hospital were great, like Dr. Zomstein and the urologist I met, who wasn't actually working for Baptist at the time, Dr. Martinez. So they were still all in my treatment team, but the oncologist part of the whole treatment wasn't there anymore. And that was a serious blow. So emotionally, we just went through all kinds of things, including thoughts of suicide, because how am I going to survive this if there's no medication? Well, how are we gonna deal with this? And so Julia and I, very resourceful people, used attitude to literally fight all these negative emotions. That's a very important part of this whole journey. At that moment, what do you do when the hospital says, sorry, we can't help you? You're still ill. You know you've got a ticking time bomb inside you. It's going to go off at any moment, and you're going to die, and you don't know what to do. And there's no one in the team of doctors that can help you. So we thought, okay, the only thing that we had to go on was one name of a doctor by Dr. Martinez. He had a mentor when he was studying. He was still close to someone called Dr. My goodness, that's the one name I have forgotten now. Jorge Caso. There we go. Dr. Jorge Caso. He, in his mind, Dr. Martinez was still thinking cystectomy is the only way forward here. And this is the only thing this is the only signpost we had to how the treatment was going to proceed. So cystectomy. And Dr. Martinez says, look, I've got this guy. He does all my cystectomies for me. Like, voice over Dr. Martinez. He does all my cystectomies for me. How many are that, Dr. Martinez? I mean, seriously, 5 a week? That's crazy. So he says, Dr. Jorge Caso, brilliant guy. He doesn't work for Baptist, though. He works for a different hospital. He works for Mount Sinai Medical Center. And I'm welling up just thinking about that name, because they were just the most wonderful people who helped me through this thing. So go see Dr. Caso, and he does cystectomies. That's the only signpost we had. So we thought, okay, great, let's do that. Let's make an appointment with Dr. Jorge Caso, the bladder butcher, as I put him in my phone, made a note of his number, the bladder butcher. Didn't want to lose my bladder, of course. I didn't want to lose any part of my colon anyway. Didn't want to lose my bladder. Was not looking forward to meeting this man. Turns out Mount Sinai is, of course, not covered by the insurance plan we had just signed up with. Excellent. Baptist Hospital was. My local, my general practitioner doctor was. Mount Sinai Hospital isn't. But the good thing was they're close to where we live. I live on 2nd Street in South Beach, Miami South Beach, and they're on 41st Street. So it's literally just a trip up the road. Note that my mobility wasn't great at that time. So any kind of traveling arrangement really wasn't great. So we met him, and he was such a pleasant guy. Really, bladder butcher really doesn't do him any justice. I have revised that since then. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he looked at my case notes, literally 200 pages faxed over from Baptist Hospital, 200-page dossier that I already had before I even met the man. And he goes, give me a minute while I read this. And he looks at it and he says, we may not have to do much of anything for you. I know people at Mount Sinai, they may be able to help you. So let me put you in touch with the head of our radiation oncology department. It's something that my previous oncologist at Baptist Hospital didn't try radiation because he was afraid it would aggravate the bleeding that I had. So we didn't try radiation. So Dr. Caso says, yeah, I'll put you in touch with that guy, and I'll also put you in touch with the oncology department there, like the chemical oncology department, the hematology department, they call it. So I met these two wonderful people through him. He remained my urologist from then on. And Dr. Kuritsky was the guy in the radiation oncology department. He said, yep, that looks terrible, but let's try radiation and we'll see if that shrinks the tumor. And it looks like you've got these two conditions. So at Baptist, they did this genetic test as well. They did this thing about where's this coming from, this cancer? And they did genetic testing. They confirmed I have these two conditions. So they knew it was genetic, KRAS mutation and Lynch syndrome. And Dr. Kuritsky says, well, I'm not that much up on hematology, but I can tell you that FOLFOX is 99% likely to fail in patients with these conditions, especially when they're happening in tandem, if they're happening both of them. So why they gave you that, I don't know, but it turns out it was necessary as a first-line treatment so that the insurance company could open up other treatment options such as immunotherapy and all that, which I also had, which is what actually cured me. Spoiler alert. I don't want to keep you longer than I absolutely have to. I know we only have 10 more minutes, but I'm only halfway through my case, so I'll try to rush it along a little bit. So Dr. Kuritsky administers radiation treatment, which in conjunction with new chemo treatment that my oncologist at Mount Sinai tried out, did actually shrink the tumor. So the hematology oncologist, rather than the radiation oncologist, is Mike Kusner at Mount Sinai, and he's still looking after me today. So we have a great relationship going. We have literally, these guys have collectively saved my life. So we administered that first. We administered radiation in conjunction with FOLFIRI treatment, which is very similar to FOLFOX, just I think is not platinum based. I don't actually know. It's just a different type that he wanted to try out, see if it shrinks the tumor. So the amazing thing about this meeting Dr. Kuritsky, and this discussion that we had, this initial discussion and the time he took about it, is that he said, look, chemotherapy is really ineffective for people like you because you have these two mutations. So anything chemo, we don't know, but experience tells us it's not going to work. So radiation might work. Radiation will stop the bleeding probably, which it did. Radiation will also shrink the tumor to a certain extent, but it's not going to completely get rid of your cancer. But my buddy, Mike Kusner, hematology oncologist at Mount Sinai, he can administer immunotherapy to you, and that might work well better. And this is eventually what we did. So we tried the radiation and FOLFIRI treatment, which worked up to a point over a course of, we're talking towards the end of 2016, but it was clear that it wasn't killing the cancer efficiently enough. So towards that end, after about I say 2 to 3 months worth of treatment, radiation and FOLFIRI at Mount Sinai, it turns out that the tumor had shrunk so much that I had now developed a fistula because there was less tissue, because tumor shrinkage. I had developed a second fistula. So remember, I already had a fistula between my large intestine and my bladder. That was still there, so the occasional blood clot thing was still coming out. It now turns out that I was starting to urinate from my rectum, which is weird because that was disconnected at that point. It's seriously bizarre. Turns out that was a fistula from my small intestine to my bladder. So my colon and my bladder were now completely connected, and we had come to a point where the treatment was kind of as much as we could do with chemo and radiation. And my Kusner said, let's do this now. We don't want you to get any iller than you already are. Let's give you immunotherapy. So at that point, we're talking, this was kind of January, February 2017. This was, I was probably at my worst, having been severely weakened from so many chemo and radiation treatments. The cancer was, even though the tumor had shrunk, the cancer was still there, and it was kind of trying to go elsewhere, and it was terrible. I wasn't sleeping anymore. I was, because of that fistula, we had decided I can't ingest food anymore because that's just going to infect me, and infection then might turn into sepsis, so we wanted to make sure that doesn't happen. So Dr. Kusner said, let's play our trump card. Let's try immunotherapy. And immunotherapy, and this is literally the future of cancer treatment, chemotherapy works in a way in which your immune system is being attacked to a point that everything is dying hopefully including your cancer. So that's how, in ballpark, that's how chemotherapy works. Everything gets killed off, including you, hair cells, skin cells, literally everything. And hopefully also the cancer. Then we just kill you a little bit more. You will hopefully survive. The cancer won't, and then you'll be back to normal. But of course, the side effects are terrible. I mean, I still have tingling in my fingers from Fofox treatment. When it's cold outside, I still have issues. Sometimes when I pick up a cold can of Coke, it is literally like a jolt of high voltage going through my fingers. Side effects, terrible. Immunotherapy, on the other hand, and there's many types of immunotherapy, works in a way that it helps your body detect what is a cancer cell and lets it fight the cancer cell just with its own weaponry that is used against things like viruses and literally against things like everything. So cancer cells have this exciting way of putting kind of a protective layer around each cancer cell. That means our immune system goes, nah, I can't attack that. Don't really know how to do that. That must be a good cell. I can't really touch that. So immunotherapy works by slotting into this protective layer on the outside, destroying it, exposing, essentially, if you will, the cancer cell for what it is, and lets the body's immune system literally just get rid of everything that shouldn't be there and destroy cells that are sick, shouldn't be there, mutated, whatever. The immune system can then tell and just gets rid of it. And this is exactly what happened in my case. And that was an unbelievable, remarkable recovery I've made there. So in February 2017, I'm pretty much at my worst, literally with everything, health-wise, mental-wise. None of the treatments have worked. I'm severely weakened. I can barely walk. I had to have a wheelchair to get by. So like going back and forth to the hospital, terrible nightmare. In agony all the time, sleep deprived. I wasn't eating because I was on this thing called TPN, total parenteral nutrition, into my port in my shoulder. So wasn't eating solid foods anymore for 9 months. This goes on. And so literally that was February 2017. And Dr. Kuznia says, let's do immunotherapy. We don't know what the side effects are going to be. They could be terrible. Not everyone gets on with it. People have terrible skin rashes. They have reactions that are really not nice, and we're just gonna have to give it to you and see how it turns out. If nothing happens, you're good. If something drastic happens, you'll feel it pretty much immediately. So I get the first infusion. I get it once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, I believe. Get the first infusion, nothing happened. Second infusion, nothing happened. Fun fact, Dr. Kuznia's nurse practitioner says to me, just because nothing's happening doesn't mean we're giving you water or saline solution. We're giving you the good stuff. It's $10,000 per infusion. Can you believe it?
Oh my God.
But somehow the insurance paid for it. There was really extenuating circumstances there. So very, very cool. Somehow the insurance paid, even though we weren't insured with Mount Sinai. Whatever, it kind of worked. It's kind of a miracle. I thank God for that. It's unbelievable. So third infusion, we're talking March, something like that, March, April. I feel a little bit better. I can start sleeping again. And I haven't felt good in a long time. I felt terrible for literally 2 years now, going down. And something in me just makes me feel a little better. I can move around again. I can walk around again. Something in me appears to heal. I feel all right. I'm still on TPN by that point. I can't eat because there's still these plumbing connections all, wired up in my colon. So there comes a point, fourth infusion of this magic drug, which is called Keytruda, made by Merck. And I don't know how much research they've done with that, but this thing is absolutely marvelous. By April, there comes a point, and remember, in February, I was in a wheelchair to get around, to get some locomotion back into my life. By April, I'm fit enough to go on my bike and cycle to Mount Sinai. It's unbelievable. It's not long. It's like 4 or 5 miles on the bike from where we live. I can cycle again. It's unbelievable. I didn't know how good that could feel, that I'm basically back among the living. And that is because of the immunotherapy, which literally just told my body, here, this expose all that for what it is, and you take care of it. And my body was strong enough to do that. And little by little, it just kept repairing whatever inflamed shit there was inside me, and just kept, chipping away at it day and night, like the unbelievable immune system that we have does. And I was cured. I mean, the story obviously continues, but I am aware it's 1 o'clock. So just to wrap it up.
You can go ahead for a couple more minutes. I know there's people that have class at 1 or 1:10, but this is being recorded, so I can just share with them after so that you can hear the rest of the story. So feel free to go ahead and take a couple more minutes to finish.
Great. I mean, the story is nearly over. So the kind of the punchline thing, I have survived, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here telling you this witness statement as such. It's been... Keytruda, the immunotherapy, has literally worked for me, and it's worked so well for me that I did not suffer almost no side effects whatsoever. So usually when you administer treatment, the doctor makes this judgment call of saying, well, it'll be bad for you, but it'll also be bad for the illness, and that'll be good for you. So you outweigh. It'll have some negative impacts, but hopefully the positive impact that you get will outweigh that. And that's why people give you chemotherapy, because we want you to live, and you're gonna deal with head loss and nausea and all that, but you live. So which one would you take? Yeah, okay, I'll take I'll live. So, and with immunotherapy, it wasn't like that. The immunotherapy wasn't 3 hours in the infusion suite, wasn't a 46-hour takeaway pump that continuously infuses you for 2 days, and then you have to go disconnect that in the hospital. The immunotherapy was literally a 30-minute infusion in the suite. A tiny little bag, like 250 milliliters of saline solution with some white powder that just gets mixed and goes half an hour. That's all it takes. So that's really convenient. It also is convenient in regards to that it doesn't have any side effects, or it didn't have any side effects on me. It doesn't work like that for everyone. But for people who respond well to immunotherapy, they have they just get healthy again, literally like that. And this is what happened to me. So the only side effect that I had is that it destroyed my thyroid. So I can't produce thyroid hormones anymore. And for that, I take a tiny pill for $1 every day. It's a very small price to pay. So yes, that's Synthroid. So, but the treatment had to continue for a little bit longer. Dr. Kuznia didn't want to take a chance. He said, my goodness, that recovery is seriously insane, from not being able to walk to being able to not just walk, but now cycle back and forth to the hospital for your treatment. That's insanely good. You don't want to give that treatment for too long, but he gave it to me until about September, and in which time I just made more and more recoveries. I felt like my old self again. I was still on TPN, so we didn't want to take the TPN off, because the plumbing connections, the me ingesting solid food would still have infected me. So we wanted to make sure that doesn't happen. So it comes to point September where he says, okay, let's take you off the treatment and let's get you into surgery, because we need to sort out the plumbing issues. We need to reverse that colostomy. We need to have a look what can be salvaged of your bladder, and if it actually can be done and all that. So, yes, that happened then. You're very welcome, Jilpa. I appreciate your thoughts. Yes, very much appreciated. So he says, okay, we need to take you off the treatment and give it 4 weeks, and then we can book you in for surgery. And I thought I wanted to go back to my previous colon surgeon, Dr. You're very welcome, Jennifer. As Yarela says, it'll be recorded. Also, I wanted to leave you, in case you wanted to know more about my story. I've written it all down in this amazing book, Broken Bowels, Tales of a Super Survivor. I'll link to that. Yarela's will link to that. You can read the whole story if you want to know more about my case, more in-depth details. It's very important for me to write that and get that out of my head. So,
I'll share with everyone for sure.
Thank you. So we booked me into surgery, and I wanted to stay with my previous colon surgeon, because he had done all these things. He should be able to reverse them. But because my bladder was involved, the colon surgeon alone couldn't really do the whole job. Dr. Zomstein said, hey, I know nothing about bladders. I mean, I know I have my limits, I'm great with colons, but I need to really have a urologist there to assist me. But super, super awesome thing how the universe just turned the wheels in this amazing case. My urologist was employed by Mount Sinai at the time, but I wanted to do the surgery with my colon surgeon at Baptist Hospital. Well, for insurance reasons, you can't have a urologist just do a stint of surgery at a different hospital. It just can't happen. So earlier that year, Dr. Casso, my urologist from Mount Sinai, tells me, hey, I have some bad news for you. I'm going to leave Mount Sinai. And I said, oh my God, don't do that. Who's going to look after me? And he goes, yeah, I'm taking a really high profile position at the new cancer center at Baptist Hospital. So I'm changing hospitals. And I was thinking, you're joking. So by the time my surgery comes around, he is working for Baptist. So now Dr. Zomstein and Dr. Casso can operate on me together. It's unbelievable how that just turned out. So we book in the surgery for October, which is why October is such an important month for me, October 2017. And we don't know what we're going to find. We don't know how much of my bladder is going to be salvageable. We don't know what the cancer has ruined for good, how much damage has actually been done, because up until that point, no one's actually looked inside me. And the day comes, Dr. Casso has a long phone call with me the day before, and he says, hey, look, these are the options. If I can't salvage your bladder, what are we going to do? I can give you a urostomy. That's like a piece of your intestine will be turned into a second stoma on your belly, through which you'll expel urine, have a bag permanently. We don't know if we can reverse your colostomy either. That is also in the air. We don't know if that can happen. So you might end up with 2 bags for life. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, what are the other options again? And he goes, well, there's something in which I can maybe, if I can't salvage your bladder, I can graft something out of a piece of, so he's really thinking outside the box. I can graft something out of the side of your small intestine, put it onto some remaining part of your bladder if I can salvage it. It won't work like a bladder, but you'll have to catheterize yourself once or twice a day. And I said, you know what? Do whatever you have to. Do whatever is necessary. You'll sort it out. I know nothing about these things. My preference is that things are going to be just coming back to good somehow. But if you need to do whatever it takes, do whatever it takes. Take the whole bladder out, take the whole colon out, whatever it takes. I trust you guys. You're going to make a judgment call on that. And I think you really like that kind of attitude. And so they did. We both went in. Julia and I went in on I don't remember the exact day, but it was in October to the surgery, and they put me under, and it takes forever. Literally, Julia's waiting outside, and the whole surgery took like 14 hours or so. And Dr. Casso actually came out of the auditorium first to see my wife, and he gave her this amazing news, which was that there was no evidence of cancer in my body anymore. There's nothing growing anymore that they had to resect. It was messed up, so through fistulas and things had been, fused together. But the immunotherapy and my body's immune system were so efficient that literally every residue of cancer cell had already been taken care of, thanks to Keytruda and my immune system. And it was unbelievable. He said, yeah, we could salvage all the bladder. The bladder was okay. There was only one fistula in which both the small intestine and the large intestine had connected to the bladder. So we only had to take one snip off. So my bladder is now kind of half capacity of what it used to be. But it's a bladder. It's real bladder tissue. And he had to literally cut the whole bladder in half to have a look inside it. He said we took so many biopsies while we were in OR, and just making sure none of this is cancerous. And none of it was. It's unbelievable. So he said, I don't know how many biopsies I took, but none of it was cancerous. Nothing in your colon, nothing in your bladder. Remarkable. My colostomy could be reversed into an ileostomy, so that the lower part where the large intestine is connected to the rectum, that was connected. And to give that time to heal for about 10 weeks, Dr. Zomstein gave me an ileostomy on the other side of my body, and said, in about 8 to 10 weeks, we're gonna have a look, see if that's all healed properly. If it's worked, we can reverse that, and then you're free to go. And that was literally the end of 2017. So it was just between Christmas and New Year that this final ever surgery happened in which my ileostomy was then reversed. So first big surgery, like I call it the penultimate surgery, the massive, the big one, in which I got this amazing news that I was indeed cancer free. That was in October, which is why October is the such an important month for me. And then it was like this tidying up the ileostomy, with which I had to live for 2 months. But it was almost like a walk in the park. I could eat solid food again. I was getting my strength back. I was recovering well, and that was literally a formality almost. Major surgery being a formality, one of those things. But yes, you come to think of these things. What is major? What is minor? Yeah, reversing a colostomy is a minor thing. You could just go 3-4 days in the hospital. Unbelievable. And that's my story. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, so it was really important for me to write all this down, because I do forget things, and I haven't thought about my whole case in a while. And this is the book I've written. It's thick. It's got 130,000 words. It's got close to 500 pages, and you get it from Amazon. It's called Broken Bowels. I do have a website. It's called supersurvivor.tv, and you get a sample there. I've narrated the whole book as well. If you want to hear me read this out, I have done that as well. That's also available on Amazon and Audible. And that website here, supersurvivor.tv, that has all the details to that. And that's my story. I hope it wasn't too long. I'm so sorry it took longer than I had anticipated. So
no, that's totally okay. Like I said, I'm recording it and I will share with everyone in case anyone wants to hear the rest. I'm pretty sure they want to hear the rest of it. Like someone said in the comments, I'm so happy that for the fact that this horrific journey with an amazing outcome happened, like Jennifer said in one of the comments. And that you're here with us to share your story, and that we get to commemorate another year of life.
Yes, absolutely.
For you this month specifically. I was not aware of this, so it took me by surprise.
It was a great coincidence. Absolutely, it was such a good coincidence that we did this in October.
Definitely. So I'm very happy that we get to celebrate it with you and to have you here to share your story. So thank you so much for collaborating with us, for being here, for talking to us about your journey.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you for having me. It was really nice to recount that. And as I said, I hadn't done this in 2 years. It's one of those things where writing this book was an important mental step for me, to put it behind me, to literally work through what has been happening to me in my life. And it was awesome to finish that. And I recommend to everyone who is going through something like that, any kind of story like that, do that. Write down what you're doing. Could be a video diary, could be small notes, could be anything, but make sure you remember it that way, and you get over it and get on with the future. I mean, this is one of those things. Cancer is something that we all have to live with somehow, and we just need to make sure it doesn't come back. It's not actually that it'll kill you eventually. If you detect it early enough, it really can't harm you. And if you believe in that, you're okay. Just make sure you get your annual colonoscopies. And I know many people are hung up about colonoscopies. Man, go. It doesn't matter if you're 50 or not. Go. It's a walk in the park, and you're under. You don't even notice it. Do it. If you have.
And something that's very curious about your case is the fact that you had warning signs, because colon cancer is called the silent killer for a reason. It shows no symptoms. Most people, when they go get their colonoscopy, it's already too late. So it's almost incredible for the fact that you actually had the signs that led you to the diagnosis on time.
You're right. And it was a wake-up call as well. And it's one of those things I had, I tried going for a colonoscopy in my 30s. Kind of just because I had this cancer in my family, and this was in the UK, and it was just bizarre if you're saying, can you please do a colonoscopy on me because I think I may have cancer, and they go, you're like barely 30. I don't know. Okay, we'll put you in, and you're not really put under either. It takes 6 months for the appointment to come through. It's all, maybe it's different these days. This must have been in the kind of 2008, 2005, 2008, something like that. Maybe it's different today, but the healthcare system is very different. You don't pay anything. Everyone's insured on the NHS in the UK, but because it's government funded, things work very much less efficient. And so I'm kind of glad that I experienced all this in America, where it cost so much more money, but I also got to meet the people who helped me through this. Like my mom, who has a friend who had colon cancer at the same time as I had, and he is still living with it. So he had T4, so his stage was 4. It had metastasized to his liver, and many of these nodules that he has are inoperable. And the German NHS, which is a very similar system to the UK version, they've decided, well, we operate as much as we can, but the issue is that we can't really operate the things in your liver. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to give you chemo every 4 weeks just to keep the cancer at bay. So we zap it and it keeps growing. We zap it, it keeps growing, and we just do this for the rest of your life. And you go, that's not quality of life you're talking there. I mean, I had, how many infusions did I have? 20 something in total, or 12, 18, I don't remember. And I still have side effects. And it's been years since I've had this stuff administered. So one of those things. Hey,
You're a very strong man.
Beard Goblin just wanted to say hello. One of my YouTube pals who's joined in the audience. So just wanted to say hello there. And who anyone else is watching on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're a very strong man, and just thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's really inspiring. I personally aspire to become an oncology pharmacist. I am currently studying pharmacy. And stories like yours really inspire me to really go for it and not look back, honestly.
Hey, that's awesome to hear.
Thank you. Thank you for inspiring us and sharing your journey.
Fondest memories. This is exciting that you say that, because some of the fondest memories that I have, and some of the longest time you spend as a cancer patient, is in the infusion suite, on cancer wards in the hospital, and all these circumstances. If you have a great relationship with your doctor, that's one thing, but the people who, and that's important, doctors are super important, but the people who really do the day-to-day with you, those are the oncology nurses, and they have been tremendously helpful for me to get through this, because you get depressed, you get emotional, you think, what's the point in all this? Can I get through this? And it's the nurses who really are there with a happy smile to administer the treatment, who get you through this. They're the people literally on ground zero who help you through it. So that is great. If I can inspire you to do that, that is awesome news. If you need anything else, if you have any more questions, then let's stay in touch here, Alice. And that goes for any of you. If any of you have any questions, drop them down in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. Even going forward in years to come, I'll be here for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And likewise, if you ever need us as a student chapter to collaborate with you in any way, we'll be more than happy to plan anything.
Let's do it.
I'm so happy that we finally got the chance to do this after
2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And then COVID happened, and we were going to do this in person, and one of those things. No, remotely works fine.
We were almost there, and then COVID happened.
Yes.
But I'm happy we still got the opportunity to do it. So Thank you, technology.
Thank you, technology.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Let's stay in touch. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you made the most of this experience. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
All righty. Me too. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. All right. Thank you so much, Day.
You're very welcome.
Again, fascinating by your story.
No, it's really nice. I really appreciate us doing this together. It's awesome. And yeah, it took a bit longer, but it's just a big case. It's just one of those things. It's nice to be able to do this. I hadn't rehearsed this, of course. I should have made notes. I should have perhaps made notes.
But it is your story. So whenever you tell it, it's probably like you probably remember a little detail you didn't remember the last time. And that's what makes it unique.
Yes, the story kind of stays the same, but the details, not so much the details change, but what I remember and what I bring into the story, that always that varies a little bit.
Definitely. I will keep you updated with our events. If you want me to let you know of any future events with NCODA, we're actually doing a fundraiser for Be the Match. Are you familiar with that organization?
I'm not actually, no. No, tell me
Be the
about
Match is an online registry of potential donors of bone marrow for patients that are in need of bone marrow transplants.
Oh.
So we're actually hosting donor drives and a fundraiser to help this organization. So I can send you the information in case you're able to share it with your followers, your people. That will be incredible, and I'll send you more information.
That is great. Hey, do you know
this
is a question for you actually. I used to give blood back in Germany and back in the UK as well. And over here in America, it appears that I tried it once, and I was told now you have to be an American citizen to be able to give blood. Is that correct?
Oh, I am actually not familiar with the process. Does anyone know? Anyone listening?
Because it sounds kind of weird. I mean, blood's blood, and I suppose they test
I
you.
could ask some of my professors and some of the professionals that I know. I could ask them and get back to you on that, but I'm actually not familiar with that, and that's something that I should know.
It might just be the guy in the van who didn't know any better. I just thought it was weird, and so yeah. If you know people who could find out,
I can
let me
ask.
know.
Yeah, I'll definitely asking get back to you on that because that's a very interesting question. That'll be good to know.
Great.
All right. Well, I will email you soon as a follow-up and email everyone also. So thank you. I'm so happy that this happened finally.
Me too. Take care, everyone.
Take care. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.